All right, let's just jump right into it. Getting seriously lean, I'm talking ripped, visible abs, it's something so many people shoot for. And, most of us can lose a little bit of weight at the start. That part's not so bad. But why do so few people ever get to that next level? Why does almost everyone hit this invisible wall they just can't seem to punch through? Well, believe it or not, the answer might actually come down to a really simple but incredibly powerful idea from math.
The physicist Albert Bartlett said this, and you really gotta let it sink in. He said, "The greatest shortcoming of the human race is our inability to understand the exponential function." And that, right there, is the entire key. We think linearly. We think, okay, if a diet is a little hard on day 1, then on day 60 it'll just be a little bit harder. But that is not how it works at all. The difficulty, the hunger, the fatigue, it doesn't just add up. It multiplies. And not getting that is exactly why most people's diets completely fall apart.
So let's really break down this whole exponential problem. The challenge of a diet doesn't just climb steadily like you're walking up a gentle hill. No, it's more like a curve that gets steeper and steeper and steeper until it feels like you're trying to climb a sheer cliff face. And honestly, just understanding that this curve is coming is the first real step to beating it.
Check this out. This is a perfect example from the world of finance. Imagine you have just $1 of credit card debt, and it grows by a tiny 2% every day. After a month, it's not even $2. Big deal, right? But after 5 years, it's over $1 million. It's insane. And dieting is the exact same thing. Those first few weeks, the hunger is manageable. But that little, tiny daily increase in difficulty, it's compounding. And eventually, it turns into this massive, overwhelming force.
And then you hit this point. This is the moment of truth. You're deep into it, and you are literally having dreams about pizza and donuts. Now, this isn't a sign that you're weak or your diet is broken. Not at all. It is a totally predictable mathematical point on that exponential curve. Most people get here, they freak out, and they quit, thinking it's just impossible. But if you see it coming, you can actually prepare for it with the right game.
So what's the first part of that game plan? It's avoiding this really common trap that I like to call protein slop. You know what I'm talking about. When things get tough, we start reaching for all these convenient, quote-unquote, healthy snacks. But here's the thing. A lot of them are actually engineered to make you fail. Just take a look at the ingredients list on a lot of popular protein bars, or so-called healthy cereals. You'll see stuff like this. These aren't really whole foods, are they? It's just a collection of different powders, weird gums, and artificial sweeteners all mashed together. And they are specifically designed in a lab to be hyper-palatable, which is just a fancy way of saying they're designed so that the second you finish one, you want another one.
And this really lays out the difference perfectly. On one hand, you've got the protein bar that tastes like a fudge brownie. It's gone in 10 seconds flat, and it just leaves you craving more sweet stuff. But then on the other hand, you have real, high-volume foods. Think about a big plate of chicken and broccoli, or a giant bowl of salad. It actually takes time to chew, it physically fills up your plate and your stomach, and it doesn't flip that addiction switch in your brain.
So the whole key, the absolute goal, is to find foods that live in this sweet spot, right here in the bottom left corner. You want stuff that is filling and tastes good enough that you actually look forward to eating it, but not so insanely delicious and addicting that it becomes easy to just binge on. That is your goal zone.
Okay, so what happens when you're deep in the grind? You're past the easy part, and that exponential hunger really starts to kick in. Well, you need a playbook, and here are 2 tactics that at this point become completely non-negotiable. Tactic number 1. You have to track everything. In the beginning, sure, you can kind of get away with intuitive eating. But as you get leaner and leaner, your body's signals get all out of whack. Your margin for error just shrinks down to basically 0. Tracking every single calorie isn't about being obsessive. It's the only way to guarantee you're still making progress and not accidentally eating back all your hard work. There are no exceptions.
And you've got to burn this into your brain. Think about that meal you have at a restaurant or the snacks at a friend's party. Those are the moments where diets go to die. Because if you can't track it, it's so easy to go way over, and then you feel guilty, and then you just give up the next day. Being aware, even if it's just a guesstimate, is what keeps you in the driver's seat.
All right, the second tactic is going to sound a little weird. You have to eat your water. I know. We're all told to drink tons of water to feel full. But when you're in the deep trenches of a diet, that trick just stops working. The water just kind of flows right through your stomach in a few minutes, and you're hungry again.
But get this, a potato is nearly 80% water. Isn't that wild? Solid foods that are packed with water, like fruits, vegetables, and yeah, even the humble potato, they physically take up space in your stomach for a much, much longer time. They give you a feeling of volume and fullness that a simple glass of water could never compete with. And here is a super practical, almost magical way to use this idea. You can take a tiny serving of oats and turn it into a massive, super filling meal. You just cook it with a bunch of water, maybe even nuke it a second time with more water. Then you mix your protein powder with its own full glass of water. Then you combine it all, and you end up with this gigantic bowl of what's basically oat soup. It feels like a huge meal, it takes forever to eat, and it can keep you full for hours on barely any calories. It's a game changer.
So, we've covered the food tactics, but now we have to talk about the real battleground. Because at this stage of the diet, it's honestly less about physical hunger and way more about winning the mental game. It all comes down to where you put your focus.
So how do you stop your brain from obsessing over food 24/7? It comes down to 3 simple rules. First, get busy. Seriously, an engaged mind doesn't have time to daydream about cheeseburgers. Second, clean up your environment. If the Oreos aren't in the cupboard, you can't eat them. Simple as that. And third, and this one is huge, limit how often you eat. I want you to think of it like this. Every single time you eat something, even a tiny little snack, you open the hunger gate. But here's the problem. A small snack doesn't give your body enough to close that gate again. It just leaves it wide open, leaving you wanting more. So by putting all your calories into just 3 or 4 big, satisfying meals, you open and close that gate less often, which means you spend way more of your day actually feeling full and not even thinking about food.
Okay, this brings us to the final piece of the entire puzzle. And it's not some secret trick or a new supplement or a biohack. It's a fundamental mechanism. It's the thing that makes the whole process work.
The actual day-to-day process of getting ripped is incredibly simple. It's almost boring. You just follow this checklist every single day. The tasks themselves, they're not complicated. The difficulty isn't in what you have to do. It's in for how long you have to do it.
And this, right here, is the ultimate truth. There is no shortcut. There's no magic food that will make it happen twice as fast. Real, lasting success comes from just patiently, consistently executing a simple plan over and over and over again, long after the initial excitement has worn off. You just have to trust the process and let time do its thing.
And here's the big paradox of it all. In almost every other part of your life, your job, learning an instrument, whatever, obsessing over it, trying to find little hacks and ways to get better faster, that's what leads to success. But with dieting, that exact same obsessive energy becomes your worst enemy. It makes you constantly think about food, it makes you second-guess your plan, and ultimately, it's what leads to failure.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. We've been trained to think that getting ripped requires more effort, more intensity, more focus. But what if that's completely backwards? What if the real challenge is just to apply simple, consistent effort and then let go of the obsession? Maybe the real secret to getting lean isn't about trying harder at all, but about learning to be more patient.